7 o'clock, I said. I know I'm talking to no one at the moment, and that's all right. Um, hopefully I get some folks to join me here tonight. Just thought it might be a fun thing to build a little project and do this key fob deal here. So that's what we're going to do tonight. Um, I'm going to keep an eye out here, see if anybody shows up. And then after we pass 7 o'clock here or so, I'll just start prattling on and doing what we're doing. So. Oh, there's a human available. Look at that. I always wonder who joins live or how you guys know. I really have no idea. This is only the third time I've done this. Ah, yes. Hello there, Anne. So, so glad you could join us this fine evening. One human, that's good. I like humans. Hopefully, the human can hear me. Other work's messy. Ever tell you folks that? End up with stuff like this all over the place. Try to keep it swept up. Yes, you did, and I'm glad you're here. Ugh, phone. Oh, well, I can't control that. All right, back down to zero. That's okay. I am debating what I'm going to do tonight on this. I don't know. Got to think about that. I got to walk over here and get a stamp. 'Getting me some stamps. What other stamps of interest do I have here? Cow, maybe? Turkey? Ooh, dolphin. Yeah, let's go dolphin, I guess. 7 people. Oh my gosh. 7 people? That's pretty awesome. Any of you listening out there tonight, I'm just going to go over some basics of leatherwork and make a little key fob. Um, this key fob here is something I have a die set for that you can click out on a clicker press. Um, so you don't need that to make a key fob. You can cut it by hand. You take a scrap piece of leather, make your tab up here, punch a couple holes, and that's it. So I don't want anyone to think that you need a ton of tools to do leather work. You really don't. There's so many things with a couple basic tools you can do and some hand stitching or even no stitching as the case is with this. There's just a lot of different things you can do with some basic stuff. One of those basic things is this guy. It's an edge beveler. That's one of the first things I'm going to do tonight actually is edge bevel this. Um, it's something you do with just about every bit of leather work you do. They do come in different sizes. You can see this one's much wider than this one. So there's definitely a difference there. And that has to do with how thick your leather is, how much of a bevel you're going to put on each side. Really what you're doing is kind of rounding this or beveling it some to make a nicer edge here, to make it look nice. And you literally do this on just about every leather project. This is one of those tools that you kind of super expensive. They do make very expensive ones. Like here is a very fancy one. This came from Ron's Tools. They're absolutely gorgeous. I love them. Nice and sharp out of the box, and they're great. And while I would definitely buy this again, this works. This is, I want to say, like $50, $60, maybe more now. This is like sub $10. So, again, don't think you got to be here at the beginning when this will work. The bigger thing with these is keeping them sharp. And a habit I've gotten in over the years is stropping these. This is a green compound. I know it looks black, but I just get in the habit of stropping these before and after I use them. and they stay nice and sharp. So once you cut your shape for a key fob or whatever you're doing, in this case, you're doing a key fob, figure out your shape, get it lined up the way you're going to do it. The next thing I like to do is I'll edge them. So that's what I'm going to do with this guy here. And by all means, any of you are watching, if you have questions, you want to talk about something, even if it doesn't pertain to this, shoot it down there in the comment section. I'll try to keep an eye on that at times and respond if I can. That's kind of the point of doing this. I just thought it might be a fun thing to do. When you do an edge with one of these bevelers, if your angle is too low, it doesn't catch. If you're too high, it won't move. You got to find the right angle. And this way too. Like if you're too far rolled over, it won't work either way. But once you have the right angle, and you'll see I'm turning the leather a little, which makes my life easier. And I try to get uniform as I go, but the first time you do this will not be this smooth. It's one of those things that the more you do it, the more you get a feel for it, it becomes easy. So we're almost all the way around. I'm just trying to work around that last corner there. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but see how that's rounded over a little bit now? That's the thing. Ah, Mr. Asa there. Yes, okay, that's a very good point, actually. So this is my stone for tooling. I have, at times when I've taught, have been very fond of saying, be careful not to hit this stone. Now, you don't want to do that because you don't want to run this and mess it up. My sharp part's in here. You also don't want to hit that on the stone. So sometimes I'll take a rubber mat like this, which is probably a good thing. And then the rubber is not going to hurt this at all. Okay. I've done this for so long, I don't worry as much on the stone, but when you're starting out, you definitely don't want to gouge your stone. The stone's there for doing tooling and stamping work, so you need that support. But yes. Okay. Now the backside's a little tougher. The backside is just the type that's there leather-wise. It's a little tougher to work around. This is where having a sharp tool is so important. I was definitely guilty of not having a sharp tool in the early days. So that's definitely on me, and that's okay. Okay, so we have beveled this side and this side. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to burnish that edge. I don't have to do it now. Sometimes I'll wait till the end. I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but this is more to demonstrate for you folks. Burnishing is one of those things that if you were to get on a forum on the internet and say this is the best way to burnish, you are going to start an internet fight. There are a lot of ways to do it. I'm going to use in this case just some saddle soap. Saddle soap is a leather kind of a cleaner. It helps to somewhat moisturize the leather also. So I have 12 people. Wow. I have 3 people. So that edge, basically what we're doing is getting it wet more than anything. I'm going to do the back also, just to smooth this out. You're getting all those fibers, and this is vegetable tan leather, by the way. Veg tan leather is a type of leather that you can carve, tool, and so on. So I'm just going to work my way through these edges. Yep, I'm getting it on the rest of it, which is probably why I won't dye this at the end, but that's okay. Other things you can do this with, believe it or not, just putting dye on it wets it enough. Once you have that dye on there, you can do it from that. There's a product, I might butcher the name, my apologies, gum tragnathan, thin something, is the name of it, I believe. But you see how that's changed in color now? So from there, there's a couple ways. You can grab a piece of denim or an old rag or whatever you got and just do this. That's enough to burnish it, believe it or not. And I'll see, you can see it started to smooth out there. Now, I also have this little guy, or I have this guy, or I just have, whether that works too. All these things will help burnish it. Basically, anything that'll smooth that edge out. Just like that. There's a lot of other ways you can sand this down with different grits of sandpaper, but all we're trying to do is smooth those fibers out, make it nice and shiny. These are pretty nice, but you get it. I don't know if you folks can see that. That curve doesn't fit in there, right? So I can't get into that smaller spot. So good on a longer edge, like on a belt or something like that, but that spot, no. All right, let's see here. So I'm just taking a closer look. This guy here, this is used for other things, but this end is, you'll see there's different grooves in there. All commercially available, but the point is, you don't need to buy one of these. This is an old piece of antler I use a lot of times, especially for getting a spot like that. You can use this wooden handle, believe it or not. I've done that. So lots of options. That's the takeaway here. So you can see it. It's smoothed out. It's not the way I like it perfectly, but it's not too bad. Ooh, we're up to 4 people again. Look at that. And that's where we're at. So that's the basics of edging and beveling. Not hard to do at all. Well, Lexi, I see you ask what's going on in here. We're just doing a little leatherwork tutorial, I guess, if you will, and making a little key fob here tonight. And if you have questions or whatever, by all means ask. I'll try to answer. So the fun part to me is how you decorate this stuff. And there's lots of ways to do that. I'm actually going to wet the leather at this point, which I'm doing just with a spray bottle. They also call this casing leather. You know, so both work. But I'm just going to get that a little bit damp from that. I'm also going to take a piece of scrap here, and I'm going to wet that out too. I always keep some scrap on hand so that I can practice what I want to do before going on the real thing. Lexi, am I a professional? Well, that's a good question. I do own a small leather business. I'm not sure what qualifies as a professional. I've been doing this now for probably close to, I think leather, I've been doing about 18, 19 years, maybe longer. I had the pleasure of teaching at a summer camp years ago. So I know some stuff. Am I a professional? I don't know. I own a business doing it. I do this stuff. I love doing it. I'm kind of self-taught though, so it depends. And feels I'm a professional. Okay, we'll go with that. All right, so let's get back to the possibilities of what we can do to decorate this. And this is all very much in your mind's eye. I'm going to tilt the camera up here quickly. So like all of those are different types of leather stamps. Again, you do not need all of that to do a fraction of stuff. I don't even use most of it, to be honest. But it's there and it's useful. I'm not happy with how the wetness is of this, so I'm just going to add a little more to it. This is a very, you learn it over time kind of thing. You definitely don't get it one off. It takes a little time to figure. Too wet is no good. Not wet enough is no good. So we find in the middle. I brought these out too, just to show you. I do these a lot with kids. When I have kids about. These are called 3D stamps or 2D stamps, I forget which. Tandy Leather sells them. There's other places, but there are all kinds of neat animals and stuff. So if somebody just wants something simple on a keychain, you just do this. I got to grab my mallet here. This is my mallet that I use. Again, you want to talk about starting from somewhere. This is a commercially made mallet. And you know, cost a few bucks. I forget what these go for. I think this is a Berry King one. This is what I used for a long time. That I made out of a hunk of plastic I had laying around and a piece of wood and a bolt. It works just fine. I still use it. There is another option. Let me see if I can grab one here quick. I got to find what drawer I hid them in. Bear with me, people. There it is. A lot of people start out with this guy. Pretty inexpensive. It's a rawhide mallet. It works very well. Lexi, yes, you currently are the only two chatting, but by all means, ask me questions, anything. Again, my point is this is a relatively low entry point cost-wise. Okay. So I'm going to just do this just to show you this 3D stamp. I want you to notice how I made one good hit there. And there's a reason for that, because I want a one good impression. And there's our dolphin. What a lot of people do, or a mistake that gets made, is they go to do the hit and they start doing this. And what happens is it shadows. See how you got multiple impressions? You never want that. Doesn't look good, right? So that's the biggest thing, is we don't want that to be problematic, so to speak. So one good hit, if you've got to do it again, if you had a decent hit, you could usually find it, the spot it's in, and then give it one more nice hit. And you'll see the one on the right there is still nice and defined and crisp. And this pretty much goes for all the stamps. From these guys to the type you see over here. You don't want a shadow. You want to make one good impression. In this case, I don't want to be boring, so we are not going to use one of these tonight on the keychain. I feel like we should do something a little more significant. I haven't really decided what. I've been kind of thinking my way through that, what I want to do. And I think what I'll do first is let's just put a little border on it. So I'm going to grab my wing divider. Again, you don't have to do it with this. You don't need this. You could do it with a ruler and any kind of like a pointy awl or something. But I'm going to figure out where I'd like a border on this, just to give me enough little margin there, just what looks good. So I'm going to put one end against it there, and I'm just going to work my way down and around, across the bottom, back up the side here. I'm just going to kind of end it up by that first hole there. I want to make a comment about those holes too, just a second here. Understand, again, this was done on a die set with what's called a clicker press. I don't have a way to show you that because it's in a different part of my shop. Those holes, though, can be done with a punch, just like this, put on there, whack, whack, and with like an A for and. And that's absolutely a possibility. They do make letter stamps of varying sizes and styles and shapes. I have very often done that where I put a letter on. I will show you an example. I'm going to use I believe this is a 1/2 inch size. These are known as a fancy lettering set. You can see they're fancy there. All of these take a very similar end that goes in these. I just keep one up there. There's usually one in the letter set, not leather. But you could very well do an A. There's our fancy letter A. So absolutely, that's a possibility. Kind of picture that on there. Very common to put initials or a letter on there for somebody's name. Seen that many times. Done it myself many times. Okay, so I've got an outline there around the outside. So, yes, Finkel is Einhorn. Absolutely, I totally agree. Einhorn is also Finkel. I think what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you guys, I'm trying to show you a lot of different possibilities. I know I keep saying you don't need a lot of tools, and you don't. I'm using all this stuff because I have it, okay? This is what's called a swivel knife. And a swivel knife is used a lot of times for doing carving work. If you're wondering what carving work is, give me a second, I'll show you. Let's see here. All right, here's a couple things that were carved. Both of these are carved leather. Try not to be overly judgy. I hand drew these. I'm not great at drawing. So an owl on the right and some leaves on my left. But the swivel knife goes, like if you look at the outside of the owl, all the way around that owl. And then those stamps up there, they're used for tamping it down to bring the owl out and so on. We're probably not going to go that far tonight, but that is carving work, and that's a whole other thing. Okay. So just because I wanted to find my border on this and give it a little definition, I'm going to just use the swivel knife here. You might see my head. And cut that line I just scribed in there. So the line is just an easy way for me to follow it. I know I'm being quiet, but that's because I'm concentrating, people. All right. So there's our swivel knife cut. Not too deep. You're not trying to cut all the way through the leather. I don't know how well you can see it there. Trying to get the focus for me. But deep enough that it gives me a nice border. Okay. And same thing with our swivel knife. I keep this handy just to give it a quick little strop so it stays sharp. Again, I was really bad about keeping my tools sharp. And for years, I'm like, oh, it's too much of a pain. It's not that big a deal. It was a big deal. Sharpen your tools. Thanks. Amazing. Okay. Appreciate that. You see, we're bouncing around. We're back down to 4 humans. That's all right. I'm going to bevel around this. And you can do that several ways. You can use a beveling stamp. See how that's angled? The beveling stamp will go in there like this, and you tap it all the way around. They make all different sizes of those, but I'm not going to do it that way because I'm feeling kind of lazy. So there are 2 ways I can attack that, excuse me. I can do it with this beveling tool. It's called a push beveler, and push around it. Or I could use a swivel knife that also has a beveler on it. Thank you for sharing the live. I don't even know how you do that. Folks, I am so not adept at this stuff. I'm lucky I know how to click go live, so I appreciate it. So all this is doing, again, is it's pushing it down on the inside part. So to define it a little more. So I'm just going to run that up here. Work my way around the corner there. And then we're going to come down the other side. You might see my fat head in there. My apologies for that. I'm also still figuring out the best camera angles and where I need to be. Now, the dampness or the casing, the wetness of the leather, plays a real important role in this, because if it's too damp, it's mushy and presses out all over the place, which is not good. Got it. 3 dots at the top. Okay. If it's too dry, it doesn't hold that shape down well long term. Now, you can probably see, you can see how it's angled down this way, which gives us a nice border out here, presses that out in the middle. So now we go back to thinking about what do we want to do in there. There's no wrong answer here. This is the fun part to me. This is, I struggle with the word art with this stuff, but this is the art of it. Let's face it, or the craft, if you will. There are so many possibilities stamp-wise. So one thing we could do, I'm going to take another piece of scrap here. And my water. And I'm just going to wet that out there nice. I'm going to make myself a little room while I'm letting that dry just a moment. We're done with our beveler. That goes away. Let's move that over yonder. Get this out of our way. Hey, we're up to 6 people. Look at that. Where do you normally source your leather from? What type do you like to buy? I still veg, tan, econo from Tanny. Okay, so that's a great question about where to source leather from. I personally now buy almost exclusively veg tan from Wicked and Craig. This, you may notice, is the natural color, if you will. This, you'll notice, is brown on the front. So this is called a skirting side, which you can still tool, you can still carve, wet mold, things. So I buy the pre-dyed stuff, the skirting sides, because then I don't have to worry about spending a lot of money on dye to re-dye. But nothing wrong with using dye. I find that versus Tandy, the Wicked and Craig leather is far better. The other good quality tannery in the United States is Herman Oak. I personally haven't used it, but people I know that have. like that very well. Most people shake out between those two. Um, the nice part is Wicked and Craig, you can absolutely call them up. They'll send you a side of leather. They don't care if it's one side or 100. Herman Oak, you have to get through a dealership somewhere else versus going directly to them, which is okay too. That said, if you're just getting started, I don't see a problem with Tandy Leather. You got to start somewhere, get an understanding. Um, Cheaper option or finding a bag of scraps or small pieces. On a hide, a side of leather, hopefully I'm not getting too deep here. Um, it's part of the leather is not going to be good for some things. The belly leather is more squishy and wrinkly, so a lot of times people will avoid that depending on what they're making. Um, so there is, I don't want to say waste because you find uses for it, but you may not make, like I do a lot of sheath work, um, for knives. So I don't want to use belly leather for that. So I'm going to use up around the back, things like that, shoulders, so on. But that's where I go to. That nicer grade leather in there. So I hope that answers your question. Hi Daniel, how you doing? Glad you joined us here. Um, so I'm just going to do a quick little. I'm going to draw a little terrible angle there, but I said I was going to draw a box here, right? So we're doing the same thing as we did over here. I'm just doing it on the fly here, so to speak. And we'll bevel that real quick. And there's a reason I'm doing this. I want to show you one possibility of what we can do. So some of you may be familiar with what's known as a basket weave stamp. Basket weave is a very common pattern. You'll see it a lot on saddles, especially Western saddles, things like that, holsters, sheaths, all over the place. And it's a repeating stamp. So that is a possibility what we can do. Now, what I like to do with basket weave, and this is a real small area, is I want a line for reference on it. So I don't want this line to be noticeable. So I'm just kind of nice and light there. See how there's a line there? Now you can see it. Oh, we're up to 14 people. That's great. A basket weave stamp, they come in all shapes and sizes. Like here's a little tiny one. And I'm not going to torture you guys with the little tiny one because it'll take forever. Here's a pretty big one, which would be, as you can see, like 1, 2 is all you're going to get. That's a bit too much for a size like this. So we're going to put that guy back. And I'm going to pick something sort of in the middle. Let's go with a size like this. So this is a possibility of what we could do on our keychain. What I'm going to do with this is, and again, my head may end up in the way, I don't know. I'm lining these two sides up on that line. And remember I said before about one good hit? Same thing here. One good hit. And there's our first basket weave stamp. Okay? And now I'm going to line up. I'm flipping it to the other side of the line. I did turn it around. And I'm going to put one post into the one that's there and the other side on the line. One good hit. And then we're going to go up to this one. And again, half is, I don't know if you can see that well. I'm trying to get it in there best I can. This little leg here, so like one part is going in there, the other one's on that line up there. Okay. So then we've got it down the line. We got 3 on there. Now I'm going to match this one up here. This is a bit of a judgment call to get your spacing right. So I know that's a little shadowy there. Let me see if I can turn this a little bit. You got to watch that you don't tip way out this way and that you keep a uniform space between here and here. Okay. And then the pattern just repeats like that. There's not a lot of space here because I just did a little spot. So let me just finish this up here and then show you what we got. When you get close to your edge there, sometimes you got to tip it this way so you don't go over your lines. Okay. Pretty easy to do though. Just a light tap to finish it off there. Pretty close on the bottom. You should be able to tell the patterns there. This is a very small area. Normally I wouldn't do an area this small, but there's our little basket weave pattern. Okay. Then the other thing I can do is put a border around it. So I might use something as simple as this guy. This little border stamp here. All right. So let's see how that's going to look. I'm going to start in a corner. Going to move our keychain up there. So I'm going to start right there. And I want to put it right next to it. Let me do a couple here, and then I'll show you folks. Again, notice how I'm giving it one good hit, making sure I have it set well. I want you to notice how I'm holding this too. I've got at least 2 fingers on it, and I probably have at least a finger down or 2 to hold it down there on the edge. So there's our border going on. All right. Thinking more about the leather too. I think so much depends. There's a lot of different types of leather. We're using veg tan leather for this kind of stuff. But if you get into purse making, geez, vests, I line my sheaths with deer skin. That's another type of leather that you can't carve, but it comes out beautiful for some things. So there's a lot of different leathers out there. You have to keep that in mind too. There's oil tan, there's chrome tan. So it's just that the only ones that you can carve or stamp is a veg tan leather. Okay. The rest do not, they won't take it. And it's because the fibers, when they're wet, they soak that water in, and that allows that to get put in there or to wet mold it around something. And then when they dry, it keeps that shape. So 7 people, I like it. I hope this is of use to you folks, but by all means, ask me questions. So I'm just finishing this border around here just to show you what it looks like. Real common thing to do. When you get to a corner like this, it's a judgment call where you stop. This one I'm going to actually, because I can turn it this way, it'll work out, I believe. It did. I'm very happy for that. And one more here, and this is a possibility for us, folks. All right, so that is definitely something that could be done here. We could just do a little basket weave, maybe smaller, with our little border thing. They make, part of the reason all of these stamps are here, one, I've collected for years. So again, don't think you need all these, you don't. But like these here are all border stamps. They're just different types. These are all bevelers. There's a whole bunch of different types depending on the size, shape you're doing, if you're doing figure carving, stuff like that. Here's another practice piece I did. Another type of geometric stamp with an edge border that I was just playing around with at one point. So that's why when you see all these, like basket weave stamps are up here, there's something called veneers here, and there's a whole bunch of others. You don't need that many. You just don't, okay? I probably use 6 all the time when I do carving work. Okay, let's look at some other possibilities. So much like our dolphin stamp or our 3D stamp, here's another type of picture stamp. I did hit that twice, but I knew it didn't move. He could be on there. He's kind of looking grumpy. I don't know. We're not going to do him. These are all different types of pictures and different things. Again, nothing wrong with them. You know, like there's a nice little tree. Like we could populate some trees around, things like that. Heck, here's a horse. Let's see what the horse looks like, just for giggles. I hardly use these, I'll be honest. There's our horse in there. So, all right, what do we got here? I see people talking. Anytime, Asa. Enjoy your studying. Good luck. Alrighty. Okay, so we're still stuck with, or not stuck, but I'm trying to decide what to do here. Part of me almost wants to carve a leaf of some type. Walk you guys through that. Then maybe add a border around the outside. Here again, I just sprayed that to get that a little wetter down in here for practice. there's so many border options. I mean, you can take things. This is a veneer stamp, right? And you can do something like this. We're going to use this like it's our edge, right? Move that over there. So we can go like this. So that could be a type of border, right? But we can very much add in, let's go, I like this idea. So in between these guys, we can put a star. That could very easily be a border we go around the thing. Let's do a tree, limb, and leaf. That's a lot for that section, but it's possible, I suppose. I miss how you like to case your leather. If you did sure, Daniel, we can go over that again. Casing leather is tricky. This is another one of those things, kind of like burnishing, is you can start a fight on an internet forum in about 30 seconds by saying this is the best way to case leather. Tonight, this is how I'm casing my leather. I am just spraying it till I'm happy with the wetness. Other ways include a sponge and a little bowl of water. You can brush it on there. Some people go, and I've tried this, I just don't like it. They will take their piece of leather they're working with and put it like in a baking pan, that's full of water that much or something. Soak it till the bubbles stop, bring it out, let it dry till they get to the dryness they like, which may take quite a while, and then work from there. I don't know there's a right or wrong answer. What I will tell you is getting your leather not wet enough is not good, and getting it over wet is really bad because it gets mushy and shoves stuff around. Whenever you, especially stamping, see how those are crisp and clean? Any of these stamps, that's what you want. If it's too wet, it pushes it around. You definitely don't want to do that. I'm still thinking through Ann's suggestion of a tree, limb, and leaf. So for perspective, because you can't really tell here, I want to show you guys. You've got about 1.75 inches that way by about 1 inch and it looks like about 3/8 across here, the window we created. That's a small window. So when you have a small area, it's tough to get that much detail in there. Can it be done? Yes. But when you look at something like this, so these are some leaves I did. I think I was attempting oak leaves. You could probably get a leaf on there, but that's about it. We could abstract it. That's possible. Tools for months. Definitely not for months. I do definitely advocate playing on scrap and learning. It's practice is the biggest thing in learning how you do it. That said, if all of you were sitting in my shop taking a class in person, you would walk out with a keychain that's finished or something else we did, a bracelet or whatever. Anyone can learn how to, especially do stamps like this or these kind of stamps, very easily. A little practice and you're good. Now, to get to a point of carving work, that takes some more time and practice. I wouldn't recommend starting with this. You'll get frustrated. But learn the basics. Learn how to cut that border with a swivel knife. Go through those processes, those motions. Learn how to take a swivel knife and learn how to do curves. Stuff like that. Do some straight lines. Try to do a figure eight, which I'm still not great at, to be honest. I'm okay at it, but I still practice that, believe it or not. I will just doodle like that, or I'll see different depths, things like that. And then I'll do the same thing with stamping. I'll take a beveling tool and I'll go lighter and harder and see how it comes out and see what I like. So it's all about the practice and enjoying it and getting better as you go. Basket weave or any geometric stamp like this one. Some folks get very frustrated trying to keep those lined up straight, and when you stack them on each other. But again, it's a practice thing. So no, definitely not months. Get some basic tools, play around, enjoy it, learn, and move forward. Um, okay, so we've talked about we could border around this. We could put a letter in there, which we could. Um, we obviously could do a stamp like this of some type or any of those. There's a gazillion of them around. Um, but I'm leaning towards maybe trying to think here. I'm not the best freehand artist at all. Not even great at it. Let's be honest. So, uh, okay, if you tell the kids months, that's understandable. Um, completely understand that. You know, I think there's a definitive difference between you have to know who's doing it and what level of attention they have. A lot of time with kids, I go this direction because I can teach them really easy to hold a stamp or help them hold it, have them hit it. They get the satisfaction of having that picture stamp, you know, in that case, a dolphin. It looks great. They're happy. They get to take it home, give it to mom or dad, things like that. That's great. If I'm working with adults of any age that have a little more focus and concentration, want to learn more, let's take it further. Let's talk about basket weave. Let's talk about different possibilities. So it's all a matter of working towards your audience and what you're dealing with. All right. So let's play here. Ann is talking about nature there. I think we got three whole humans here. But let's talk about nature. So this area is a little smaller than that there. What happens if I have, just bear with me here, folks. I have no idea how well this is going to come out. If I were to go like that across the thing. Yep. So let's pretend that goes this way here. And then maybe I just go like that and draw one leaf up that way. Don't ask me what kind of leaf it is because I have no idea. Beech leaf, maybe? Make a snake, the gentleman who just showed up says. I'm not making a snake. I don't like snakes. Just because I don't like them. So let's pretend that this is a log going up the side. So we would do this down it. Kind of like the limb of a tree, right? And then we need to bevel that guy out. Let's see what we can do here. Tell you, it's interesting trying to do this with the camera to my right. So again, my apologies if my head gets in the way. One of the things with beveling like this, and this isn't really meant to be a carving tutorial, is I hold this up a little bit. I'm exaggerating, but just up and then tap it down and kind of move it along as I go, which is a way to smooth that out. So I am working my way up this here. This might be a bridge too far for tonight, but let's see. There's our one side beveled. I'm going to take and smooth. Sometimes I will just rub that along there and smooth it. We're working our way through that. We're going to come to the other side here. I'm going to go through that side. Again, apologies if my big head's in the way. I can't tell. You can tell my leather's just a little wetter than I personally would like, but it's not too bad. So again, I'm trying for a branch here. I don't know if we're going to win this or not. It's definitely not a snake, although snake-like, I suppose. Again, I'm not a fan of snakes. We're not going with the snake. Now, one thing I will say, this is a little choppy. I'm not thrilled with it. But part of that is because I like to get a little closer when I'm doing it with the camera there. It's kind of in my way. So we're not winning that one. And that's all right. All right, so working through, we got to make this more tree-like. This is a modeling spoon. It's a way you can make some marks and indentations on leather, almost like you're drawing, trying to kind of just a little bark effect. A little tough because it's so small. Excuse me a second here while I get my head down in there again. And I'm going to do, this is something I'll do sometimes. I've got a little pin here, a little finer. I can kind of work in some different spots there. And then I'm also going to take, that pin was in a little pin vise, by the way, is what I did there for that. How about a mountain? Mountain seems more feasible, better than a snake. All right, so I'm just edging that. So I don't know how branch like that looks, but somewhat of a branchy there, I'd say. I'd say we're in the ballpark. All right, and trying to picture how that would look, like going up it that way. But maybe if we had this leaf up there, let me just give this a shot here. We can bring this leaf to life a little bit. And I think I'm just going to kind of picture a little, just a stem coming up that way. That's definitely a possibility. Now, something I would think about in this case is if we're sneaking that on there, that the leaf would be up in this direction. That does leave us an opening to stick a letter down here for an initial or something like that. So that's a possibility. I have a tendency to get over detailed or try to do too much. I think that's dangerous. I think it's better to, I don't want to say keep it simple, but that's kind of where I'm headed with it. Just to keep things, you don't want to go too far, if that makes sense. So let me see. I'm going to work my way around this leaf a little bit. And again, I actually have a mountain stamp, believe it or not. But I feel like we can do better for this little example today. So rather than walking over to the drawer there and getting that mountain stamp out, I think we can do better. All right, so we're bringing this leaf to life a little bit. I'm going to do something here to kind of bring that branch to life a little bit, hopefully. Hopefully you folks can see this on some level. Not thrilled with how that branch is coming out there. I can think of other ways to do it, but a little hard to do on camera. So, but there's our little leaf up there. Yes, absolutely. I did give the meaning of life. By the way, it's 42. If anyone gets that joke, please post it. The meaning to life is definitely 42. I repeat, 42. I'm going to just detail this leaf up just a little bit here with my swivel knife. I'm going to give it some veins. Not a lot of room here to work, but that's okay. Just dressing it up a little bit. So it looks more leaf-like, if you will. So the last thing I would do to this, just to kind of keep it simple in the interest of time, I might do a little background work on it. I think I'm actually going to go with the pebbler here. This will help bring that out a little more, I think. And let me just work this up around here. So the background stamps it down even more, and the tree limb more to a forefront, if you will. And I hope you all can see that what I'm doing here is not complex. It's fairly easy to do. It's hard to master, but it's not hard to figure out how to do. It's just following steps. There's lots of great info out there on how to do this stuff. A lot of great books and YouTube videos and tutorials and things like that. So don't ever be afraid to try this. You get better the more you do, and it's fun. You can be very creative or even just a little creative if you want, however you want to approach it. All right, so I don't know how much you guys can see here. What I'm doing is I'm using, I believe it's called a bubble one, but it's kind of a triangle shape, and that's getting me close in around that, okay? So that's the first step, and now I've worked my way around that whole thing. So now I take a bigger one, like that, which allows me to feather it out further and faster. And there's no, you can go all the way to the borders with this. You don't have to. There's really no wrong answer here. It's kind of eye of the beholder, if you will, or eye of the artist, or I don't know, however you want to look at it. All I'm trying to do is give that a little more shape so we can see it better. So what do we all think there? Not too bad. Brought it out a little bit more. Doesn't look terrible to me. That's a thought. Let's see here. I guess I got to make a decision, huh? What to put on this guy. I am drying out some. I'm just going to hit this again with a little more just to make sure we're ready to go. I do like the thought of having an initial down here in the bottom corner. I think that's a quality idea for someone if we were giving this away or whatever, but definitely a possibility. So the mountain deal, I don't know. I never did much mountain wise. I've done some, but usually they're much bigger in scale. So like when I think of this mountain wise, I mean, even if we just did something simple like this, up to the edge there, I mean, that's a possibility. I'm just going to roll this quick here, see what we got. Thinking about if they're snow capped, I don't know. But there's some basic mountain. I'm going to cheat use the push beveler because that's what I feel like doing here, and I think I can get away with it. I normally don't do that when I'm doing carving work. And I am definitely way off track here, but that's all right. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see here. An elk? Really? An elk? Yeah, we're not doing an elk. That's not happening. Here, I'll tell you what. Here we go. Let's see here. Right below our mountain. There we go. There's our elk. All right, that might be a reindeer. Elk-like? I don't know. But maybe the reindeer needs a friend that's, I don't know, down this way. There. That's our whitetail sneaking along the mountain. I'm out on the mountain. I'm not feeling it. So I'm open to thoughts, folks. Here's where we're at here. We're 55 minutes in. We're getting close. I can do something like this. I can do something like that. We could go to the mountain. I don't think that's good. Do another type of geometric stamp, or we could just do a nice border around the outside. Anybody care to comment what they think here? I know where I'm leaning. And there's no wrong answer. And I want y'all to remember this. This is a very small piece of leather. If you mess this up, your worst case is whoosh, you chuck it and grab a new piece of leather, and put it down. So that's my recommendation. Oh, I just found something else that goes well in our mountain range. Make sure I do this the right way here. Okay, adding to the mountain range. Look at this. There's a duck flying over the mountains. Okay, reeds in a pond. All right, listen, we're getting out of control. We got elk and we got reeds in a pond and we've got all kinds of stuff. This is out of control. I've done reeds in a pond though. They're not too bad. How about we stick to like the possibilities given? The second option. I know where you are leaning. Yeah, I'm leaning here. I got to be honest. I this is kind of my thought process. Um, Lexi, I'm guessing you are not that old. I am. So, but again, learning this at any age is a good thing. I like it. All right, that's where we're going. I say we go with this and see what we can do on here. I do a lot of feel how wet it is. Um, and I think we're okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to freehand draw this limb, which, trust me, is not my strong suit on any level. We're going to give it a shot here. All right, so try to go a little wider on the bottom of this one. It's very scraggly, so try to picture it as, got a hook going up it and so on. Oh, great. Now that I drew it, I look and see, make the limb thinner. Yeah, it's a good point. But too late. I've now drawn it, so we're going to work on what we got there. Might have been a good point. I might be able to, you know what though? I can get away with that. I can make that thinner. Let's go. We're going to take Ann's advice here. We're going to try a little thinner. So we're going to go right up there like that. So I know you're all thinking, like, what about that right there? We'll make it disappear. So yeah, we're going to try a little thinner. Or we can go back to this. I don't know. I'm being indecisive. Indecisive, not good. Let's not be indecisive. Okay, so I'm going to work on the limb first. I'm not going to draw that leaf in just yet. So we're going to take our swivel knife, work our way down it here. There's our top line. Okay. And I'm going to, I don't know, let's see here. I'm going to split the difference. I'm going to make that work. All right. So there's our limb. And I might go off camera here just briefly. I hope this is giving you guys an idea of what's possible. That's kind of where I was going tonight. Just kind of give you a sense of what you can do. There's so many possibilities. You're pretty much limited by your imagination only. Again, I didn't really intend this to be a carving thing necessarily, but here we are. And we're killing it. right, so we've beveled that top line out, as you can probably see. All right. That bottom line, unfortunately, is probably going to disappear when I bevel right now. But we may be able to do some detail work there to keep that alive. I'm getting this one a little smoother than the last one. This is a different piece of leather too, so that's part of it. Apologies, I know you probably can't see too well at the moment. Alrighty. So let me just do a little smoothing here. All right, so there hopefully is limb. Okay. And we got the basics there. I'm going to take my modeling spoon here and just kind of taper that edge a little bit. It probably won't show on camera, but it gives it some depth to round it off like you would see a limb in nature. I will try to hold it up here in a second and see if we can see it a little better. So it's kind of tough to see, but I beveled it over a little bit, kind of around it. So, all right, 5 humans watching. That's great. This is not the best piece of leather I have this in, but it'll work for what we're doing. All right, so now I'm thinking about, I have to remember that this is going to get folded over. And it's going to get this rivet put right in there. So that's something I got to keep in mind, is because that rivet will come down just a little bit in here. Going to make a little bit of a mark. So we got to make sure not to get up in that area. So I'm thinking about, do I do the leaf down here? Do I do the leaf up here? I got a little more real estate up here. I almost feel like we're going to change it up a little, do the leaf down here maybe. Trying to decide if I'm going to do the leaf the same way, if I'm going to go more like a maple leaf. I think we'll keep it the way it was. Let's go back to our example here. Maybe a nub, startable leaf. Yeah, how the heck am I doing that, people? I mean, yes, it's spring, but, you know, doesn't have to be a nub. All right, bear with me here, folks, while I figure this out a little bit. So I am definitely winging this at this point, very much so. That's okay. There's a rough drawing of a leaf. Yes, why don't you just jump on through and draw it for me? That would be great. Um, all right, there's my swivel knife. Okay, let's see what we can do here with this leaf. All right. Doing some beveling around the leaf, trying to just get that to come pop out a little bit for us. Again, I am not a master carver. I want to be very clear about that. I do enjoy it. I do play around with it a fair bit, but a master I am not. I am YouTube taught and book taught. And by book taught, I mean I've read the books, I've looked at the books, things like that. That's about it. I just don't, never had the opportunity to take some classes yet. Hopefully that day will come, but so far I have not had a chance to do that. All right, so there's our leaf. I think it looks okay. Not too bad. 3 humans watching. That's good. All right, let's do a little detail work here. I'm going to get our center stem of the leaf down it. And I'm just going to do some little offshoot veins. Just like that. And I want to do a little smoothing on it, just to work my way. A weird cut going on there. I think I double cut there. That's not ideal. However, we're going to get rid of that right now. Off camera. I'm going to give it to our art department where they're going to hand me a much better one, and I'm going to pass it off my own. No, just kidding. I just used a pair of tweezers, folks. I had to get up close and personal. All right, still 4 people. I feel pretty good about that. I'm glad for those of you sticking with us here. It's been a while. It's been an odyssey, if you will, but not a bad one. So again, I'm just kind of smoothing out around it. I'm going to use the background tool there in a second. It's not bad. It's okay. What else do I want to do there? I think we'll just start backgrounding now. All right, my big fat head's going to be in the way again, I think. 7 people. All right, people. If you're just joining us, we are doing a basic key fob here. I'll be honest, I was not planning on doing a full carve on it, but that's kind of where we ended up. And also just going over some of the basics of leather work, how you do things. Just trying to have a little fun with this tonight. If you have any questions, by all means, stick it down there. I will look at it and try to answer your questions the best of my abilities. So right now, I'm using what's called a backgrounding stamp. I believe this one is called a pebble stamp because of, if you look close, see it kind of has a pebble texture to it. That's where we're at. So we're trying to bring our little limb and our little leaf to life here. So that's what we're working on. This is kind of monotonous, especially to watch, I would think. I don't mind doing it because it really starts to bring out what we've done, which that's the nice part. I love watching it come to life. So that's where we're living right now. Sometimes I will just press it. I didn't carve around the little stem going up to the leaf. So that's what I was doing. I had it a little tight on the one side, so I just kind of pressed it through there to make it look a little better. I'm going to work my way down here. Again, I'm trying to make nice, consistent hits so I have a good stamp. I don't want to hit it more than once if I can help it, because I find it mushes it with the background. So one nice hit, I find, keeps it very consistent and clean, which is what I want. It's a little hard for me to position myself so you guys can see every stamp I'm making. There's where we're at. We're working our way around it. 6-hole, people. Again, folks, if you're just joining us, we're just doing some basic leather work. I got a little beyond basics here by doing some carving work, but just trying to show you how to do a basic key fob, some of the techniques involved in that, what to do. And that's where we're at tonight. Believe it or not, we're in the home stretch here, folks. I'm just finishing backgrounding this out. If that's too big, I go back to the small one. I wasn't liking what I was seeing up there, so I'm just gonna go back to my small guy. They make an even bigger one for bigger spaces. See the difference there? Very common to have different types of backgrounding tools, different sizes. And you can also feather these out where it's in deeper there and not as deep as you move away, which also helps define things. That's common. So much of that is the craft or the art, how you want something to look, how your mind's eye sees it, and how you want it to be. So that comes with trying and doing and figuring. Also reading and guiding and, learning different ways and so on. All right, so here's where we're at. See if I can get that to focus a little better. What do we think, folks? Not too bad. I still got this area up here pretty clean and open. I'm tempted. I think I'm going to take the backgrounding tool just to feather this a little bit through there. So let's do that now. Again, my head may be in the way. My apologies. Nobody wants or needs to see my head. Alrighty. So I'm just going to press this, I think, by hand. Let me see how that looks. Yeah, I'm kind of just making this a little more, hesitate to say uniform, but that's really what's happening. So there is our limb, our leaf. I'm going to try something on the leaf, which I may regret. But we're learning, we're doing, we're figuring. So let's give it a shot here. I'm going to reach up here, and this is again a vernier. So I think we're just going to give this some detail work with that. Yeah, it added a little something to it. It's better if it's bigger. But you know what? It's okay. But that did give us a little more detail. See if I can get that close up here. Doesn't show as well on the camera, in my opinion. But all right. Try to keep my stamps orderly, so that pause you see there is me sticking the stamps back where they belong. See a couple little spots down here I'm not happy with. So I'm just going to clean those up quick. All right, so the only thing left on this part is I'm going to go back to my pin vise with that little needle in there as opposed to this guy. And we're just going to make it look bark-like coming down through there. Nothing uniform about this necessarily. I'm going to try to do something here. See if I can do this right. So all I'm doing is drawing some lines in to make it look kind of barky. Yes, Anne is definitely pitching for the letter A. Anne would like to see a letter A up here. I would like to put the letter of my name on there. That might be a good call. Or maybe the letter E for my company, Einhorn. Okay, so again, I'm kind of, these aren't uniform lines. I don't want them to be. We're just trying to give it some detail to make it look barky, because it's a tree limb, folks. And that's what we want. You can use, I'm using the actual pin itself to make some Little dots and divots here and there. Again, I try to think about what does a tree look like in my mind's eye and how can I make that look the same on here. That to me is the whole trick. Um, Sometimes it comes out great, sometimes not. Oh, good. I've been allowed to do an E. Okay. Well, good news is I'm in charge of this. So now I'm trying to, let me see. Let's see if this will come out right. I'm just making a little indentation there, kind of like a little bit of a hole in the tree there, if you will. So let's see how well we do with this here. I don't know if this will show well, but you can kind of see how this is darker here? That's a burnishing effect. You can even see it in the stamping there some, and it's hard to see in there, but it's in there too. That's another way to get detail when you're doing carving work is by burnishing it. Again, I want to point out we could have went really simple here and just stamped a nice dolphin in there and called it a day. Um, Glad we didn't. Try it another way. So my logo will not fit there. My logo goes about that big, maybe. So it's a nice idea, though. But I'm not going to put an either. I am going to leave it open as a possibility for a letter. But for right now, I'm just going to leave it alone. I'm also thinking about maybe just a quick little border up this way. I kind of like that idea, but I'm just going to hold on that for the moment. I want to look at our tree branch just a little more here. Going to feather down our that and when I did that little hole, I kind of one line got away from me, so to speak. All right, let's take a look here, folks. So I'm happy with our tree this time, or our branch going out there. I think that looks nice. The leaf isn't bad either. Just touching up the leaf a little bit. It's so hard to get detail work on something small. I've seen incredible artists do it though. It's possible, but it is tough. All right. I know we're in the home stretch, folks. Appreciate y'all sticking around here. I hope it's been worthwhile for you. So all I'm doing now is I'm just cleaning this up a little bit, feathering in that one edge to kind of make it look a little better there. Kind of like the branch is disappearing into our border, if you will. This and this, just kind of making it, leave it, don't overthink it. But I overthink everything. I'm good at overthinking, folks. I really am. All right. All right. Couple more little things here. I am going to do. I'm looking for a stamp. I know you can't see it, but my eyes are over there looking for a stamp. Five of you are being awful quiet. Everyone's letting Ian do all the talking here. I suppose that's okay. All right. So I may regret this, but that's okay. Oops, I almost put this away without sharpening. Remember I said it's important to keep your tools touched up and sharp? It really is. All right. I'm just cleaning. You can't see it, but I'm cleaning up my workspace a little bit. I think that's so important to keep your area clean. So, all right, let's see here. 7 people and nobody talking. Okay. So what I'm doing here is I decided to run a little border stamp up the edge. I just thought it would give it a nice little detail to finish that top edge out. But you all can see it in a second when we'll decide if I was right. I don't know. Now, I even ran it up. I know we talked about that rivet is going to go there, but that's okay if it covers that a little bit. All right. I'm debating if I should just run a couple right there, and I think I will. Let's do that. Again, there's nothing wrong, no right or wrong way here. It's what your eye says and what you're comfortable with and how it looks to you. That's what matters. All right. So this is where we're at, people. We are, in my opinion, got that in pretty good shape. I think it looks okay. Not bad at all, really. Gonna put this one stamp back here. There's its slot back in its home. I'm gonna take another look at our edges to see how we are. We're pretty good there. Now, we're at a position where we could leave this in a natural state. Um, I'm not in love with it, probably partially because I got it a little dirty, probably from my hands. Yep, we did keep that going right around this edge there. We have enough room in there. I'm kind of curious. I want to see. So something I will do sometimes if I want to see if something will fit. Maybe this is craziness, but I will actually cut out like that letter A we did earlier. I'll cut that out just to see how it looks as a fit in there. If I can't see it well in my mind's eye, I will actually literally, and I'm doing it off camera right now, I will cut it down or cut it right out of the leather. See how I'm cutting that sucker out right there? And then see if it fits. Give me one more second here. I'm using it just an X-Acto knife to do this. Just have that handy, so that's what I'm using. All right. So does that actually work up in there? Wow, it actually does. So we could get away, I think that's a 1/2 inch letter. We could very easily get away with that. I don't even think it would look bad if it had a letter up in there. So that's a possibility. So I'll mull that over some more, what letter belongs there. I could put the meaning of life 42 in there. Obviously, none of you get my reference, and that's okay. So, I am going to take, let's see, this is a dark brown dye. I have this in a special thing. Dye comes in containers. You can use a dabber, you can dab it on, things like that. But I'm going to go ahead and use this. I generally do not dye on this bench because I don't want to get dye on my stone where I carve, so it goes off on a piece I'm working on. So I'm going to do this, but hesitantly. I'm going to do my edges first. I'm going to work our way around those edges. This is just it's not a sponge, it's harder than that, but if you press it down, more dye comes out. Otherwise, it stays down in the bottle. So it's really nice to do edge work with. You can use what's called a dauber. You can use a paintbrush. There's lots of possibilities here. So on our back here, now this part you'll never see because it's going to get folded over. But this part you will. There's our dye going on there. You can see the difference in color from where the dye is versus not. It'll change some when it dries. It'll dry fairly quick, but overnight to be completely dry. And now we'll work our way to the front here. Now we're adding that dye. Again, this is one of your last steps. A lot of times, I won't do this when the leather is wet. I use Fiebing's Pro Dye. I'm not a big fan of the water-based dyes. I just don't think they color well. This is an alcohol-based dye, so that's the difference there. So generally, I normally would let it dry before I do this. But because I want you guys to see the process here, we're doing it. All right, so there's our dye work all said and done. I'm going to cap this, get it out of the way. Where did my rag go? This is my all-purpose rag. That's why it's got dye all over it. So, fruits from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So yes, I got. Oh, look at that! Someone did know my reference. I have actually never watched the whole movie or read the book, but I am familiar with that reference in it. Beyond that, don't ask me what it means because I don't know. I'm going to give these edges just one more little burnish like this before we do the last part. We got that all in there. Maybe I will stamp an A on it just to be a wise guy. So I don't know if you can see it or how it looks. I think it looks pretty good. I get a little fussy about my edges. Good leather work really calls for nice burnished edges. So you want a nice burnished edge when you do it. Okay. Y'all, I'm back again. Welcome back, Lexi. So for any of you who are just joining on, again, we're finishing up a key fob here. Lots of options. We talked about doing a basket weave in here with a border. Just doing a different type of border or another geometric. We messed around with some mountains, which then an elk got added, or I guess that's Rudolph. And then I, being the wise guy, I'm added a duck and a deer. But we talked about those possibilities, or even just the possibility of putting a single dolphin stamp or some type of 3D stamp like there. There is no wrong way. The dye is a little splotchy. What will happen is that dries, it won't look as splotchy. It won't stay that way. Right now, what it is this part up here, you'll notice already is drying some. You look at this top, that was a lot darker, more like that edge when I first put it on. The other thing is this picks up the dye different because of the stamping than up here. But overnight, that'll smooth out on some level and not be as splotchy. The other thing is because it was still damp, is the part of the issue there. Okay. I had told myself I was going to keep this to an hour. I lied. But that's okay. If I had just done basic stamping here, we would have been out of here in an hour, but we are in the home stretch now. I do feel like we need to put a stamp on there just to finish it out because I think it'll look nice. Again, it'll give you folks the concept of what's possible. Again, I want to be clear, there is no right or wrong way. I will say this about an alphabet stamp, though. And Daniel, I will talk about what I use to condition it in a second, because I'm going to show you guys once I put the ribbon in. When you go to put an alphabet stamp in, they have to be the correct way. And I don't know if you can see that. On the bottom of these alphabet stamps, see that little tiny B on there? That needs to be towards you. There's your B. That little B is towards you. I've messed it up where I ended up having to go redo something because I reversed the stamp. You don't want that, especially if you're spelling out a name or something else. So, Daniel was asking about what conditioner. So there is a ton of conditioners out there on the market, more than I could even begin to expand. Again, everyone's got their favorites. I use this. This is what I've been fond of lately. Picard's leather dressing. They pitch it to lots of things. Footwear, seams, well, things like that is mainly what it's for. But it's for all leather, except for suede or nubuck, according to the label. I like this. It gives it a little bit of weatherproofing. It does not keep it completely weatherproof. There are other things that help with weatherproofing, like snowproof, I think, is one. Skidmores is another one I've used that I like a lot. Some people just use neat's foot oil. Definitely possible. Neat's foot oil will darken your leather more, in my opinion. So that is definitely a thing. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question all the way. There's so many possibilities. I've seen mink oil used. Um, yeah, a lot of possibilities, Daniel. I play around with different types of times, but I seem to keep coming back to this. I don't know why, but it's I do like that. So here is our keychain. Did stick the letter on there. It's just a little off. I should have been a little more that way, but it's good. Um, Couple last steps here. So one thing I'm going to do right now, um, this back part I can't really get after the fact. Whatever you choose to condition your leather with, it's important that you do it on a regular basis. You don't need to do it weekly or anything, but leather is it dries out over time. If it loses that moisture, it's kind of I don't want to say it's alive, but it needs that moisture to be in it. So it's important to keep these done. Now I'm going to be honest here. I'm in my leather shop. I have stuff like this laying around. Over that away, there's a whole pile of neat's foot oil, couple cans of it at least, and other stuff literally right here on the benches. I can't tell you how many times I don't think to bring my knife sheath down here or things like that to put a coat on it. So try to remember to do that. It's important. So again, I'm just putting a little bit on the back here. You'll see it shined it up a little bit versus the rest. Okay. Again, normally I would let this dry, but I just want to give you guys the concept. A lot of times I'll let stuff sit overnight and dry. Next day, come back and finish it off. The last important thing we got to do here is this. So we got a ring, and this is a rivet. It's a two-sided rivet. In this case, both sides are finished. They make it where one side is unfinished, one side has the nice round. I wanted both sides to be finished in this case. I think originally they were called Jiffy rivets because you literally just press them together. And that was the company name, but they're very common all over the place. For this application, they are perfectly fine, in my opinion. So we got our little bend over there. Very important. Remember to put the ring in there. I know it sounds silly, right? I've done that too. Or caught myself right before I stamped it. There's lots of ways to set these. In this case, I'm going to use this guy. It's got a little dome to it. And this guy, you'll notice, also has a dome to it. So one is our base, and the other is going to be for the top. Okay. So we're just going to set that down in there. This is always a judgment call. You want to make sure there's enough sticking up, but not too much. They make them in different sizes. I had already picked this one out before I came on camera with you guys, so I knew where we were going. So I am just going to put that right there like that. Give it a nice tap down, okay? That's correct, Ed. So it is like your skin. It's because it is skin. Um, that's literally what it is. And it does need those oils. And frankly, it'll last a very, very long time if you keep it oiled. That said, I've had some stuff in the shop that I've been asked to look over and try to save, and I'm here to tell you it was not savable. It's a shame. I've had some really beautiful stuff that if it had just been conditioned over the years would have been fine, but it wasn't. Okay, so you'll see now our rivet is set. See that? I can't open it. Um, there's our little key fob. Again, there's just so many ways you can go with this, so many avenues. There is no wrong thing to do. Um, it's whatever, it's your creation if you're making this. I want to be very clear. You can make a simple keychain with nothing more than, you don't even have to do the edges, but let's review. I started out, I beveled our edges both front and back, burnished the edge with a little saddle soap, and smoothed it with a rag I had. Usually I use a piece of denim, but I didn't want to walk off camera again. Or anything hard. Like I said, I'll use an antler like this to get in spots, or a wooden handle. Really doesn't matter. As far as decoration goes, I was using a pin, for gosh sakes. I've just used a pin to draw things on there, stuff like that. You can make homemade stamps if you want. The only thing I will say to you though about if you get some stamps, You do want a rawhide mallet like I showed you guys before. I'll show you again here. Something like this or plastic like this. What you don't want to use is a regular hammer because if you do go and spend the money for stamps, that'll mess this all up. It's just too much on them. Okay. And again, we got real fancy with this. You can buy some basic stamps and do a lot of stamp work around it. If you have a letter set, you can put a letter on it, things like that. Um, so yeah, it's as simple as that. What do we do? Yep, you do need some rivets for this part, obviously, or some other way to hold that together, and you do need this ring to put your keys on. The last thing I always do, again, normally I would let this sit overnight. I just want to be clear about that. We're not going to do that now, and that's okay. I will put some kind of conditioner or something like, in this case, again, Picard's. This is not an advertisement for Picard's. I don't work for them. I don't know who they are. I just know I buy a big tub of it every so often. In fact, I'm getting pretty low there, folks. They sell it in much smaller tubs. I use a fair bit of it. So um, I got a little exuberant there, got a little too much on, but that's okay. That's why we have a rag. This side, it's going to get down in there. It's going to darken it a little bit. I try to get down in around the carving, but not so much that I'm affecting the carving. Get my edges nice. Sorry, I'm over here doing the old man thing, so to speak. I'm not that old, but I don't see well, so I've got a pair of optivisors on. Not that I don't see well, but to see the detail I want. They're basically a magnifier, which I wear. So I'm pulling this up to my face so I can see what the heck I'm doing. Um, Anytime you put oils or things like this on, it will darken it. So I've heard of people using olive oil, um, which I guess is okay. I'd worry about it going rancid, maybe. I don't know. But I have heard of that. Lots of possibilities. Okay. Again, normally I don't normally do this by this bench here because I don't want that stuff on here when I'm working on a piece. That's why I kind of kept it up off there. Any excess I will take and wipe off with a rag. You want it to soak down in, but you don't want so much on there that there's excess. There we go. And there it is. There's our keychain. Um, just want to thank everybody for sticking around. We varied all over the place with people here tonight. Had some good questions. I appreciate it. Um, Hopefully this was worthwhile doing for you folks. I enjoyed doing it. We're about, what am I at, an hour and 38 minutes. Um, it's something I may do again with another thing, another topic, or just have a night to talk about leather stuff. Um, I enjoy teaching it. I enjoy talking about it. I'm not a pro, but I did sleep at a holiday. No, I didn't sleep at a holiday last night. Who am I kidding? Um, I just work my way through stuff and try to figure out things and do a little better each time. But again, just a basic key fob. Anybody can do this. Bottom line, anyone can do it. So, any last questions? Now's the time. Throw it down there at the bottom. I'll give it a minute before I log off. Thank you, Ann. I appreciate you sticking around watching it. And thank you to everybody again for watching this. I'm just me down here in my shop doing stuff. So happy to share a little bit and hopefully it was beneficial, folks. I am going to make this the live so it's on my channel so it can be watched if anybody wants to sit through an hour and 40 minutes of this. But I am going to put it up there after we're done here. It'll take me a few minutes to check off the private thing to make it public or whatever I need to do. So I agree. I would like a raise. I will let my boss know immediately. Of course, I am my boss, so he's going to say no. I know that for a fact. So, okay, folks. If there's no other questions, I see we got 5 people lurking around out there. I don't know who's lurking, but last chance. If you got anything, type it out now. And that's it. That's really all I got for tonight. So, thanks so much for hanging around. I'm going to give it to 140. Then I'm going to call it. That'll give me enough time to type something. So, trying to think if there's anything else. I got to put some tools away. Not bad, huh, gang? All right, that's it. I'm calling it. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for watching.